Hello, America. Welcome. It's Tuesday, March 24th, and we've got the news for you and a little bit of understanding of what's happening in the news. We're going to talk a little bit about the Middle East and war, but I want to focus on one thing in particular, and that is the thing that's really going to affect you. I hate to bring it up in war, but this time it's serious, and it is oil. We'll talk about that. Also, the California fraud, the Congress is doing investigations, and there's a lot of news out today on the fraud that is happening in California and all across the country. And Democrats are saying that that's just a distraction on more important things. I would like to ask the Democrats a question. What's a bigger priority to you? Because none of my priorities seem to be your priority. I don't know what your priorities are. So I'm going to go through that, and I want you to watch yourself because see how I just got a little. I want you to monitor your feelings as I go through, because I'm going to show you exactly how civilizations break apart with stories like this. We'll start here in 60 seconds. First, let me tell you about leaf filter. One of the things you learn pretty quickly when you buy a home is just how much work comes with it. You stay on top of it because you have to. It's your home. You don't want it falling apart around you, and you definitely don't want small problems turning into really expensive ones later, which brings us to your gutters. They're easy to ignore right up until they stop doing their job, and the water backs up, and it spills over, and it starts affecting your roof and your siding and your foundation, and then it's like, okay, leaf filter makes this all go away. They keep your gutters from clogging in the first place, blocking out the leaves and debris while letting the water flow through the way it's supposed to. So instead of adding clean your gutters to your never-ending list of things to do, you can take it off your list completely. Start protecting your home today with Leaf Filter, America's #1 gutter protection system. Schedule your free inspection at leaffilter.com/Glenn Beck. Get up to 15% off at leaffilter.com/Glenn Beck. See representative for all the details. California fraud. Now, Congress and the vice president now in charge of looking at fraud. We are estimating that a third of our budget is going to fraud. A third of our budget. Can you imagine that? You're a household that's having trouble, and you find out that a third of what you're bringing home and spending every month is going to fraud and waste. Wouldn't that be the biggest priority? You're barely making it. That would be the biggest priority, wouldn't it? I mean, besides, hey, by the way, we've just let some people move into our house that we have no idea who they are, and they might be raping our children at night. That might be a higher priority, but it's pretty high up there, isn't it? Democrats, I really want to know. I want to know. What you say this is a distraction for more important things. What are those more important things? Making sure our elections are secure. How about TSA? You know, we are in a war with the biggest terror country in the world. Maybe we can have a little, Department of Homeland Security or TSA. Can we do that? Do you care about people waiting 6 hours in line, missing their flights, stopping everything, border security? By the way, FAA couldn't make it up to LaGuardia yesterday. Some didn't arrive until 2 a.m. this morning. Why? Because they were standing in line. Why? Because the Democrats have refused to fund the TSA. I don't know why. By the way, if we had a DHS, maybe we could look into those drones. We don't know where the drones came from, but they were all hovering over one of our biggest nuclear bases. And these weren't stuff you buy at Best Buy. Okay? These are drones. They couldn't shut them down. We have jamming technology. We couldn't jam them. Who just sent those drones? Can we look into that? Is anybody looking into that? Can we get the Department of Homeland Security on that? Because that does seem like a big priority, doesn't it, Democrats? Maybe not for you. I look at all of the stories of the day, and I think to myself, I'm so angry. I am so angry all the time. I am so angry. I am worried about our country. I'm worried about my business. I'm worried about my family. You are too. You're worried about gas prices. You're worried about making the bills every single month. You're shuffling. You've got credit cards that you're juggling. Everybody's in this. Everybody's in this. You're worried about all kinds of things, and you're on the edge, and you're angry and disenfranchised, and you don't think anybody's listening to you. Oh, man. I want to start there with the way all of us feel, because I want to show you what happens when a whole society feels that way. Every civilization, everyone that's ever risen, everyone that's ever collapsed has been built on the same raw material. Us, flawed human beings. Now, every civilization tells stories of, monsters and saints, but generally, everybody's just a normal person, okay? And we're normal people with predictable weaknesses. You can call them sins, you can call them drives, you can call them personality traits, whatever, but it's just the way nature is, okay? The pattern is as old as we are. Some people are driven by pride, and they need to be seen as, really, really good people, even when they're not. They need to be seen as successful. Okay. Some people are driven by anger, believing that the world has to be corrected no matter the cost. I'm the one to do it. I'm angry. Some envy. I'm just not able to tolerate somebody having something that I don't have. A lot of people are just motivated by fear. They're so desperate for safety, they will trade anything for safety. Others, deceit. Lying not just to others, but most importantly, to themselves. And then the rest of us kind of fit in sloth. You know what I mean? Not laziness in the physical sense, but just a refusal to engage, to think, to stand. Just have somebody else do it, okay? There are 9 variations of all of these things that, humans have. But the one reality is we're humans and we're frail, okay? Well, civilization, everybody thinks civilization is natural. It's not natural. It's not the default setting of humanity. Chaos is the default setting of humanity. Civilization is an achievement, and it's held together by guardrails, some sort of guardrails or guards. If you don't have the guards, you have to have the guardrails, and those things restrain all of our weaknesses. And we think it's natural because we've been living in a civilization that has been built over, 2 millennia. And it grew out of another civilization that was thousands of years older, the Judeo-Christian worldview, okay? Out of that worldview, we built systems over centuries. We got it wrong for a long time. We had kings and we had serfs, and we had, barbarians, all of these things. But it grew over time. To compensate for what we knew what was broken in us, how do we hold society together? And we built families to teach values early. We built faith traditions to call us to something higher than ourselves. We built laws to restrain what, that faith guardrail sometimes fails to control. We built schools to pass down knowledge. We built a free press so truth could be challenged, with power. We built social norms. We built shame and honor and duty to keep all of our behavior, because we're all flawed human beings, inside the lines. None of these systems are perfect, not one, but together they form kind of a scaffolding, okay? And all of that scaffolding, listen to me, all of this scaffolding comes from the Judeo-Christian worldview. And that worldview is now under attack. It's that structure that allowed all of us flawed people to live in relative freedom without destroying one another. It is the miracle of the West. It's not perfection, but it's balanced. And now we are living in a society where there are millions of people that believe that civilization is just something that just pops up. We can destroy this civilization, and out of that vacuum is going to appear something better and brighter and more enlightened. It's going to be fabulous. Out of what? How? When has that ever happened? What fills a vacuum is whatever is strongest, fiercest, with the biggest club. That's the root of civilization when you don't have any principles. So now we are intentionally targeting all of these guardrails. We're taking them down one by one. One at a time, they're all disappearing. So what happens when truth becomes negotiable? When the press no longer informs, it just persuades. When education stops teaching you how to think and starts telling you what to think, curiosity is going to die. When faith is hollowed out or mocked, there's no higher authority than just me. When the laws are all selectively enforced, what happens? Justice becomes a weapon instead of a shield. Are we not seeing that? When culture stops honoring responsibility, what happens? Entitlement comes in and fills the vacuum. And then what happens? All those human frailties, they don't disappear. They now are expanding and growing stronger and stronger and stronger. Pride becomes moral superiority. Fear is compliance. Envy is just redistribution by force. Deceit, lies, it's just a narrative. Sloth is disengagement. Millions of people watching but not acting. I'm too tired. Do you see this pattern? Because history's really clear. When individuals stop compensating for their own weaknesses, they don't just harm themselves, which is another lie that was one of the first ones to start dismantling us. What you do doesn't matter. It does. Because once you start dismantling these things in yourself, you become vulnerable. You're vulnerable to manipulation. You're vulnerable to ideology. You're vulnerable to anyone who knows how to pull the right lever. And that's not a theory. How do I know that? Have you ever watched a spy movie? Have you ever watched how espionage works? How the mob works? A foreign power, anybody who wants somebody on the inside that will do their dirty work, who do they go to? How do they find them? Every intelligence agency in the world knows this. They don't recruit spies by accident. They don't recruit spies that are happy with their life. They look for patterns. Find somebody who feels overlooked. Find somebody who is drowning in debt. Find the person that believes they've been wronged by the system. Find the one who just craves importance. Find the one that is afraid. When you're looking for somebody to turn against their own country or whatever it is, they don't create the weakness, they exploit it. Now, take that same principle and scale it from the individual to our entire society. What happens when an entire society, millions of people are angry? They're afraid, they're envious, they're disconnected from truth. You don't need an invasion. You have the pressure point. And I can't imagine this happening, if someone foreign or domestic knows how to press that pressure point, everything begins to fracture from within. That's how societies fall. And that's what's happening to us right now. Do you not think that Data Republican proved this I think it was yesterday or last week. Iran is funding rallies that are happening in our cities. We know that China is doing the same thing. Do you not think that all of our enemies are not involved in our public discourse, looking to exploit all of those things, those natural tendencies that Western civilization and all those guardrails used to keep in check? Civilizations are not just conquered when somebody rolls in. They're compromised first. Look at history. Rome didn't fall because the barbarians were strong. Rome fell because it was weak. Everybody was detached. The institutions were hollowed out. Nobody believed in anything. Its values, whatever. By the time the gates were breached, the collapse had already happened. Now look around you. Think about how you just felt when I was reading those stories, because it's all those things that somebody, if they're doing espionage, would look for in you and me. This is the part that matters. Not the noise, not the daily outrage, not the headlines. It's a question none of us are asking ourselves. I'll give it to you here in 60 seconds. First, let me tell you about our sponsor this half hour. It's Z Factor. Sometimes bad sleep is easy to fix. For instance, you go to bed every night sleeping on a bed of nails. I mean, a simple solution: get off the bed of nails, dummy. I just can't sleep. My bed is just so pointy. Usually it's not that obvious. I wish it were, but it's not. You go to bed at a reasonable hour. You're not doing anything crazy. You're tired when you go to bed, and then you just sit there and you stare at the ceiling, and you just can't. Your body is racing, or you don't know what's wrong. Well, your body, it is supposed to naturally do this because it needs a reset. The last thing you need to do is put, better living through pharmaceuticals and, take some of these knockout drugs that, are crazy. Z Factor is a nightly sleep supplement from the makers of Relief Factor, designed to help your body actually wind down, stay asleep, so you're not just getting hours, you're getting real rest. And when sleep starts working the way it's supposed to be, everything else gets a little bit easier. This is all natural. I want you to try it. Just go to Relief Factor, get a 30-day supply, relieffactor.com, or call 800-4-RELIEF. 800, the number 4-RELIEF. Relieffactor.com. 10 seconds, station ID. So are our guardrails holding? Truly, it's not. Is truth still anchored, or is it fluid? Are people being taught to think or just repeat? Are institutions trusted because they're trustworthy, or because dissent is punished? Are we becoming more resilient or more easily manipulated? And are we as individuals compensating for our own weaknesses or indulging them? Here's the thing I'm trying to remind myself every day. I can blame politicians, and there's a lot of blame going to the politicians. I can blame the media, and a lot there, too. I can blame foreign actors, a lot there. But no system collapses until enough of us stop holding the line inside of ourselves, and that's where this all begins, and that's where it can still be stopped. A free society doesn't survive because it has perfect leaders. It survives because it has citizens who recognize their own power and their own frailty. And they choose discipline over impulse, truth over comfort, courage over fear. That's the real safeguard here. Not our laws, not our elections. Honestly, not even the Constitution. Those are only as strong as the people who live under them. History's not a mystery. It's a pattern. And the warning signs are never hidden. They're all lived every day in the choices that you and I make every single day. So the question isn't whether societies fall. They all do. They all do. The question is, can we recognize the moment we are all in before the fall becomes inevitable? Are we willing to do the hardest thing in a collapsing age? And that is, stop trying to fix the world. Fix ourselves. Because that is where every civilization is either saved or lost. Its people. Think about this. Who saved the world from fascism? The United States of America? Was it our government? Was it FDR? Or was it our grandparents and our great-grandparents? They were the ones that went over and fought it. They were the ones that didn't turn into animals afterwards. They're the ones that didn't go on rape gangs after. They could have. Every other country does. Was that our laws, or was that our Judeo-Christian values, our civilization that had guardrails, and then we didn't need the guards. Some did, but most of us didn't. We had our own internal guardrails based on those values. We're like, that's not us, man. That's not us. We're losing that. that will not be passed on to the next generation. It's barely there in those who are 20s and 30s. It doesn't happen naturally. And we have to set the example. That's where we really need to focus. And it's hard because everything seems to be a distraction. There's a story out that Trump has been tacoed again. What does tacoed mean? Can we stop with made up word? What does tacoed mean? I'll explain. It's going to hack you off. But then I want to talk to you about the war and answer some questions on the war that I think average people, they're not really talking about this. We keep seeing this black and white footage of things being blown up. And are things getting better or worse? Let me tell you what's really going to affect you. I'll do that next. First, American financing.
That's 182334. NMLSconsumeraccess.org. APR for rates in the 5 starts at 6.799% for well-qualified borrowers. Call 800-906-2440 for details about credit costs and terms.
Freedom comes in a lot of different forms, and all of them are important. And one of the most important of those forms is financial freedom. Because when your money is all tied up, or you don't have it, because a large chunk of your monthly pay is already spoken for before you even start, that changes everything, changes how you and your family live. The decisions you make, the risks you don't take, the options that are just, not there. It's exhausting. And a lot of times that just comes down to interest. High interest debt has a way of locking you in a loop where you're always paying but not really getting anywhere. You're doing everything right, but you're just stuck because you're stuck. Well, this is where American financing can really make a difference. They will help you restructure that debt of your credit cards, lowering your interest rate, reducing your monthly payments, and giving you a clearer path forward. Financial freedom doesn't happen all at once. Sometimes it starts with a single change that opens everything. No upfront fees to find out if you qualify. It's AmericanFinancing.net. 800-906-2440.
Get the explosive and bone-chilling Torch special Glenn released last week on demand now at glennbeck.com/torch.
Welcome back to the Torch Insider Show. If you're not subscribed today, you really need to subscribe today because this is a perfect carbon copy example of a 3-hour radio show. There's just not enough time in a 3-hour radio show to get to every single thing that Glenn is talking about within the segments. The commercials are just ruining everything. I don't want you to have these commercials anymore. So if you're not watching on the Torch right now, go to glennbeck.com/torch and subscribe. You're going to get access to all of our other content, our special that we did last week, plus everything else, George AI, Glenn AI. There's, in fact, someone today just said, this is from Tyler. Tyler from Idaho said, have you ever asked George AI about term limits for Congress? I actually have not asked George AI that, so I did today. So the George AI after the radio show today, available when it's usually thrown up, is specifically on term limits for Congress. What did the founders actually think about that when they were designing the entire system? So that's going up today. I'm going to give you the preview of George AI from yesterday, which, surprise, surprise, I never got around to showing you, even though producer Matt was screaming at me to play it. I forgot, but I'm going to do that today. And so you'll have that today, plus you'll have the George AI about term limits today. That'll be available right after the show today. But there's just zero time to go through everything in super detail. And Glenn was just talking about the things that we need to fix ourselves. So I actually love this because there is a ton of things that were happening just yesterday on that. I'm throwing out the black pill for this segment because there are actually some really, really good moves and a lot of different news stories just based off of what Glenn was talking about. I'm going to go through those, but I want to hit this comment from Mark Live first. Mark Live said, if Trump loses Congress in the midterms, is that due to his foreign and domestic policies? So that's a really good question. And I would say my personal answer would be, if he's losing favorability on certain things, it's because they haven't adequately explained what his foreign policy objectives are and how that affects MAGA. We need to fix this place, whether that be Venezuela, whether that be Cuba, whether that be what's going on in Iran, how that, fully goes out and explains their greater strategy with, stopping China and what we would look like if we just did none of these things. If they left the status quo in place, like what the Biden administration was completely fine with, if we just leave it in place, what does the United States of America look like in 5 years, 10 years? What does the world look like? How does that affect your family? How does that affect the dinner table every night? these are the things that I want to know about. These are the things that need to be explained. They're also the things that I feel in my heart that they are addressing. That is the entire point. So I want to let's throw out that black pill. Let's look at the things that we need to fix ourselves. Let's stick with what our special was about last week, the Islamist invasion. That has to be stopped. That is being stopped, which is pretty wild to see that happening, especially 1 week after we do the special. I'm not saying it's correlated. It's just nice to see that movement right as we were pointing some of this stuff out. Producer Matt, throw that up. Plans for massive Muslim community in Texas ends after Daily Caller investigation. Representative Lance Gooden confirms. So this, you might think this, they're talking about Epic City. Epic City, Glenn did a huge show on this months ago. And then we saw Governor Abbott and Paxton come out against it, and then we started seeing, bills to shut down Sharia law in Texas. A lot of good movements. This is not about Epic City. This is another community similar to Epic City in the DFW area. Now, just think about that. Just in the DFW area, we've had two massive communities that were focused on a Sharia-style, commune, basically. How many other major cities in the United States are things like this happening? It's pretty wild. I'm going to read parts of this, Producer Matt, if you want to throw this back up. Kaufman County, Texas residents became aware in early February that a potential city was going to be built in their backyard and accused local officials of being very secretive about the deal. Daily Caller report and locals' allegations that the project was an unlawful attempt to establish a Sharia city. Now, listen to this, because this talks about the developers and the funding. Reading from here. The potential developer was SEE Holding, a UAE-based, privately held global holding group headquartered in Dubai. I would love for the people that just talk about AIPAC as the people that, or organizations that manipulate the United States government or have their way and whatever the heck they think AIPAC is doing, which I'm not. Of course, AIPAC is lobbying towards, their own interests. Of course they are. I'm not having that conversation. What I am saying is, why don't we point out this, which is so obvious? It's a foreign government that is creating terraformed communities in Texas, of all places. It's just wild. I'm going to run out of time. I have 40 seconds, but to stay on this, tons of movement on fraud. This came out from U.S. Doge Services. Over $1 billion in federal student aid fraud has been stopped since 2025. Over $1 billion. And yesterday, as I was looking at all this other good news coming out, all in a span of hours, Congress launched an investigation into the California hospice fraud. This is something that CBS News and independent journalists like Nick Shirley have been talking about. A long way to go, but actual movement, and it's good to see. I'm going to have more, including updates with the Supreme Court, coming up next segment, but now here's Glenn.
Can't take it. Really can't take it. There's a story. Is this in Fortune that Trump is tacoed again? What the hell does tacoed mean? Well, it is Tuesday. Is it Taco Tuesday? Apparently it's Taco Tuesday. Taco means Trump always chickens out. Oh, God, do these people, out of all the, I would expect this from, I don't know, the Daily Beast. But Fortune, you don't understand how negotiation works? You don't always get what you want? What are you talking about? He always chickens out. Listen to this. Approximately 7 a.m. Eastern yesterday, Trump posted all caps on Truth Social. The U.S. and Iran had very good, productive conversations over the weekend towards a complete and total resolution of hostilities in the Middle East. He ordered the Pentagon to pause all strikes. That came after Trump issued an ultimatum on Saturday night to Iran, calling the regime to reopen the Strait of Hormuz or face bombardment of its power grid. Now it seems he's buying time for the work week. What are you for? The bombing of the power grid? You just have to ask yourself, when anybody says this, because they go on to say, where is it? The pattern is seen in his trade war, as he announced prohibitively high tariffs only to reach a deal later. So would you rather have everybody pay these 50% tariffs that he was threatening or negotiate? It played out in Greenland, too. Greenland earlier this year when Trump spent weeks threatening to seize the island, only to settle for a vague base agreement. Would you rather have had troops go in? What is wrong with you people? You are so deranged. You are so deranged. That's the way negotiation works. Oh, my gosh. And then they say, we're not even sure who he's negotiating with. Okay, well, we don't either. I mean, Trump has already said, I don't know. When he was asked who's going to replace the Ayatollah, he said, I don't know. Everybody we had in mind is dead. So I don't know who he's negotiating with, and I'm not sure it's going to work either. But this is worth trying. Oh. All right, let me try to give you some perspective in this, because your vacation is coming up. You're going to go, you're going to spend money. If you want to go to, Washington, D.C. and see America's 250 or see the great, the tall ships come into New York or whatever you want to do this summer, that's going to cost you a lot of money. Are you going to even have the money for gas? What is gas price going to be? My job, as I see it, is not to chase the loudest story. I think that's what everybody does, is chase the loudest story. My job is to point to the one that's going to reach your kitchen table. That one is going to be important to you. So let me just talk here about Iran and not all the explosions and all of the political turmoil. Let me just explain what this means. You are not watching a war story here. You are watching a system story. Iran, most Americans don't care about the nukes. Okay, well, Iran has a nuke. And I'm not talking about one that goes and then Godzilla comes out of the sea. I'm talking about the Strait of Hormuz. They control 20% of the world's oil, and they have just nuked it. Okay? In the non-literal sense, they have shut down all oil, 20%. We're not dependent on that. But when there is a shortage, then all oil goes up because people are competing to try to buy that oil. All strategic oil reserves, ours, everybody in Europe, everybody all over the world have opened their strategic oil reserves. This is really important. People right now are watching missiles and the airstrikes and the political statements, and then they're going to the stock market and go, sell, sell, sell. Oh, he said something good. Buy, buy, buy. I mean, it's insane. Because none of this is the most important thing. Those are the headlines. The real story is far more consequential, and it is the global flow of oil that is being disrupted at its most fragile point. I have never been for a war for oil. I hate that very concept. I'm against it now. But I will tell you, this may be one that is worth considering. If you can't fix it, we're in deep, 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 deep trouble. The whole world is. The Strait of Hormuz is not just another battlefield. It is the world's artery. And you know what happens when an artery is clogged. Okay, the body doesn't collapse instantly, but it weakens. And then the systems slowly begin to fail. So what matters this week, today, is not who said what. Not, which strike hit which target, not the political spin. The most important thing is watch the flow, not the fight, because everything downstream of that flow touches your life. If 20% of the world's oil normally moves through that 20-mile stretch, if that channel is even partially disrupted, and it is, bigly, then shipping costs rise, fuel costs rise, food costs rise, travel costs rise, business costs rise, and eventually, if we don't solve this, hiring slows, growth slows, confidence breaks, and, voila. And it's not gonna happen all at once. It's gonna show up in laters. And right now, everybody is panic buying or panic selling. Here's what you need to watch for in the news. I turned off Fox and I turned on CNBC last night, and I was just watching the business on CNBC. I understood about half of what they said, but I got a completely different perspective on this because they weren't focusing on any of that stuff. They were focusing on the panic buying and the panic selling and what the markets are doing. But they were talking to oil experts, and the oil experts were just like, hey, this is just nuts and bolts. This is just math, okay? Because what we're talking about is a just-in-time system. So you have to watch for the tanker traffic and insurance. By the way, do you know how Donald Trump just gutted England yet again? They wouldn't let us use Diego Garcia, so he said, you know what? Fine. I'm just gonna go ahead and I'll cover the insurance for the tankers. And then England was like, you know what? Maybe you can use Diego Garcia. Well, you know what? Maybe we should talk again. And he's like, nah, we don't need you. That's okay. Thank you. Why did they do that? Because Lloyd's of London, all of the really big war insurance, it all comes from England. He's just gutted England. Congratulations. So, who's paying for that? Are the ships starting to move? Right now, they're not. You have to watch diesel prices, not just gasoline. Gasoline will affect you, but diesel's going to affect you in every single way. Diesel is the economy's bloodstream. It powers our ships, our trains. It fuels all of our production on the farms, the trucks that take it from the farms to the stores. I mean, it's everything. Shipping rates. The Strategic Oil Reserve releases. This tells you how serious leaders think this is. I don't think I've ever seen, I don't remember in 1973, the big oil crisis, but I don't think I've ever seen all of the Western countries open their SPRs. I don't think I've ever seen that. I could have, maybe I just didn't notice, but everybody's got them open. And then also the physical oil versus paper oil. You know, the real world prices versus the markets. Right now, I think the markets are pricing the real world prices lower, but that was today. Yesterday, I think it was higher. It's weird, okay? Here's what's not important. The daily political talking points, because, you know, the president may or may not say things just to keep things held together, because that's his job. Claims of we're winning or they're collapsing. Doesn't make a difference. That's day to day to keep things moving. Single strikes, the strikes on this or that, really, it's talking points. Social media rumors, oh my gosh, the emotional narratives, stop with all of it. All of that is just distraction, because none of them will fix the flow. And that's all this is going to become about. Why are they saying he's tacoed? Well, he's tacoed because he's got to get that oil. Yes. You know why? They're now saying the 1973 oil embargo almost collapsed America. I mean, it was bad. 1979, we also had an Iranian instability price spike. COVID, the supply chain collapsed. And then people stopped driving. They are saying this 20% is akin to what happened to us at COVID. But we're still moving. The system's not. If that's even remotely true, that's mind-boggling. Mind-boggling. So, yeah, we want to make sure the oil does not collapse, because if this is the most important number to watch, price per barrel. If it is over $120, $130 a barrel, and it's sustained for several weeks, you will collapse the economy. $150, $160 a barrel sustained, it cannot function. The entire Western world, the math is math. I'm sorry. But I can tell you how I got there with everything being okay at $170,000 a barrel. Yeah, Common Core math doesn't work. Okay, math is math. And the entire system of the West is set up, I think the entire world, I mean, it varies from country to country, but everybody is based on that kind of oil, cheap oil. It doesn't work without it. Now, we're not at a breaking point now, but we are at the pressure point. And what happens in the next few days will tell us everything we need to know. Is it a short disruption? If it is, then the system bends. If it's a prolonged disruption and oil starts to really spike and we can't get that oil out of the Strait of Hormuz, we're in trouble. Okay, So don't watch the explosions. That's going to that'll mood swings, man. You'll feel good, you'll feel bad, you feel good, you feel bad. Don't watch any of that. Your life changes on the supply chain. World doesn't fall apart because of a bomb falling. The world falls apart when the system quietly stops working and people don't notice until it's too late. You will know how you need to prepare for the coming months just by watching the supply of oil and the price of oil. That's the thing. You can only pay attention to one thing. That's the thing to pay attention to. All right, back in just a second. Much of real estate transaction comes down to, one person. And it's not you. I mean, unless you do this for a living. But, it's the right house, the right price, the right timing. But if that one person representing you doesn't know what they're doing, it starts to get really complicated really fast. Missed details, poor negotiation, bad advice, exactly at the wrong moment. And the problem is you don't know you have the wrong agent until you're already in the middle of it. That's why Real Estate Agents I Trust exists. We vet all of the agents all over the country, and we recommend only the people with a proven track record, with high ratings from the people that they have served. I mean, we look for people who are decent people. They're all fans of the show because they're going to help you make the biggest decision, maybe financial decision of your life. Be with somebody who's already been proven, somebody that we are watching like a hawk. It changes everything about how the whole process feels when you have the right real estate agent. RealestateAgentsITrust.com. I don't charge you anything for the recommendation. You vet them yourself. You introduce yourself to them, see what you think, listen to their pitch. If it agrees with you, then great. Just try them. Just at least talk to them. RealestateAgentsITrust.com. RealestateAgentsITrust.com.
Underneath left and right labels is a common craving for truth. Feed yours at glennbeck.com.
Glenn Beck is on.
Welcome back to the Torch Insider Show. If you're not subscribed, you are now reaching about 12 minutes until you lose access to the Torch Insider Show. I do not want you to do that. So go to glennbeck.com/torch and subscribe right now. I just have way too much stuff to talk about today. I've got other Torch stuff that I wish that I could play for you today. There's just so much in the news that I really want to go through and help explain all the context around what Glenn is talking about. But that's the entire purpose of this show. This is why I want you to not lose access. So go to glennbeck.com/torch and subscribe. We're going to pull up maps in this segment. We're going to pull up a bunch of stuff. I'm going to get to your comments. I also want you to go to the Torch website, go to glennbeck.com/torch, because the contest for the singers at Ellis Island is now open. I know all of you have already started voting for that. I think we have until the end of this week or something like that. Maybe Glenn can update, but it's something like that. So time is of the essence. It's short on this. So go to the site right now, vote for your favorite singer. If you want, I can play you a few more of the examples that we have, some of the contestants that are up. We played a few of those yesterday. I can play a few more of those today if you want, but I wish I could play for you, all of them for you, because there's just way too much stuff to talk about. I want to stick with Glenn's conversation with oil, and I'm going to do that by dipping right into your comments in the insider feed right now. Jay Plain said, Iran does not own the Straits of Hormuz. Why do they think they do? Fear-mongering and control, I suppose. So Iran's idea of wanting a nuclear weapon is very similar of what they have with the Straits of Hormuz. It's very similar to their mindset of Hormuz. That is their nuclear weapon, closing the Straits of Hormuz without actually having a nuclear weapon. So the Straits have always been their main trump card to say this is how we can shut the world down, affect the world, draw all kinds of attention to us if we want. We can hurt you at a catastrophic level. And the way we do that is not through technology, through nuclear weapons. It's merely just by causing chaos in the Straits of Hormuz. And Small Town Arms said, why are our gas prices going through the roof when we don't use their oil? This is a much larger conversation on what, the greatness of what the petrodollar actually provides us. I could do up a chalkboard right now on how all of that works and how it opens up all these amazing things for us to allow to build and spend and do all kinds of amazing things, but then also how it handcuffs us and really screws us in certain areas. This is one of them. So basically, oil is a global commodity. It's traded as a global commodity. So if supply and demand is screwed in other parts of the world, it messes with the price here at home, even though we are independent of this. We are not one of the main ones that, have anything to do with the oil coming out of the Straits of Hormuz. Most of that oil is going towards parts of Europe and going towards Asia, not really us. But if it affects the global price, then it affects us as well. And again, I need to do that chalkboard, but yeah, a lot of that has to do with how the petrodollar system works. Compel radio, find an alternate route or build pipelines north of the Strait. It's a really good point, and that's actually did happen. Let me pull up a map. We got 30 seconds. Producer Matt, throw this up super fast. So this is the Straits of Hormuz, the Saudi Arabia. The Saudis, because of the Iran-Iraq war in the 80s, they did this contingency. They built a pipeline called the East-West Pipeline, where, if you can see my cursor, goes all the way across the country. It's like 2,000 miles or something like that, all the way across to the Red Sea. It's pretty wild. Also, one of the reasons why is that the Iranians concentrated on Yemen is to close them down from taking it out of that canal. Anyway, a lot more on that, a lot more coming up at the top of the hour, but right now, here's Glenn.
This is just crazy. It's just crazy what's going on. Let me play this Democratic candidate who wants to bring back deported migrants. Listen to this. Cut one.
I am interested most in pursuing a humane, dignified, and respectable way of reintegrating the people that were taken, the people who have been who were students, graduate students who were here on legal visas, who were going to meetings that were legally required for them to maintain their citizenship status, and they were taken from those meetings. I'd like to see those people returned. I will be pursuing.
Stop. So that's the most important. I think the most important thing is that how is that the most important thing? Your country is absolutely on fire. How is that the most important thing? Now, Trump yesterday is proud of ICE now in the airports. Should be. It was like 5 hours in Atlanta to get through a line, sometimes longer, sometimes slightly shorter. It's 40 minutes now because ICE is there. Here's Trump yesterday, cut 3.
Whose idea was that to put ICE in the airport?
We're dealing really.
Whose idea was it?
Mine. That was mine.
And can I ask you?
That was like the paperclip. You know the story of the paperclip? 182 years ago, a man discovered the paperclip. It was so simple. And everybody that looked at it say, why didn't I think of that? ICE was my idea. First person I called was Tom Homan. I said, what do you think? He said, I think it's great. Then I saw today there was some masks on. I didn't think the masks were appropriate. I put out a statement and I asked them, would it be possible to take off the mask? Because they should wear a mask when they're dealing with the murderers and the thugs let into our country.
So now Brian Stelter, the genius that he is, says that idea came from Fox News. That idea came from Premier Radio Networks. It was Clay and Buck. Clay was on during the Clay and Buck show, for the show following this on this network. Somebody called in and said, we should have ICE. It was Linda from Arizona. And Clay got on and talked about it on Fox News, and now Brian Stelter is like, no, he didn't think of that. That was Linda in Arizona. You know what? I don't care. I really don't. I don't care. If it was Linda in Arizona, thank you, Linda. Thank you. It was Donald Trump. Thank you, Donald. Appreciate it. I mean, it's just common sense, gang. It is common sense. And why nobody thinks of those things? It's not like the paperclip. This is government. Nobody thinks of these things because nobody thinks it'll ever get done. You think of the common sense thing to do, and then you're like, yeah, they'll never do that. And so you just stop thinking about it. So I don't care who thought of it. Really don't. Really don't. Thank you for doing it. Now, I would really appreciate it if you didn't take pictures of our ICE agents as they are trying to get you through the airport. But somebody's doing that. And if somebody's taking pictures of our ICE agents, they should be arrested. Because I don't think you're allowed to take pictures, through TSA. and show security.
Welcome back to the Torch Insider Show. You have about 4 minutes left if you're not subscribed before you lose access to the Torch Insider segment. As I say, I do not want that to happen because we have way too much to talk about today. I'm looking at my notes and they are just full. I'm looking at Glenn's show prep, and his is just it's full. So if his is full, mine is about 4 times as full with all the things that we need to really go into. I'm going to start in just a couple of seconds right with your comments, but I want to finish up the conversation we were just having on the one comment that was talking about the Straits of Hormuz and why don't they find another route so that that does not become an issue again. And I just, producer Matt, let's throw this up really fast again. So the Straits of Hormuz, this is the two big, in the news over the past, I want to say, at least 10 years, as the Gulf Arab kingdoms were fighting in Yemen. No one was really talking about why that was happening. They just wanted to focus on just the fallout. It was the clickable stuff in the headlines. That's what they wanted to talk about. But they never wanted to say, well, why are Iranian proxies fighting right here in Yemen? What's the point? Well, it's the same point that we're seeing right now happening in the Straits of Hormuz. They've always talked about the Iranian trump card in the Straits of Hormuz. That's why they are not a reliable actor in the area. That's why they need to be ejected from the area. The Islamic regime needs to be ejected because they have this nuclear weapon and they are very willing to attack civilian targets to shut that strait down. Well, the reason that they were also right here was because they could also shut down this strait. The Bab el-Mandeb, I think is what it's called, strait, right here. So if they could shut down oil here and also shut down oil here, well, they've really detonated a figurative nuclear bomb in oil and energy prices. That was the entire point of what was going on in Yemen. But I never saw anyone convey that, actually talk about it. What's the point? As if Americans are stupid. It irritates me when you have these experts with the ties and the cool glasses, and they're like, just tell us why. Well, this is why. That's the point. That's the entire reason they fought it. But that pipeline that I was just telling you about, the Saudis recognize this, and they said Iran will always be willing to use this figurative nuclear bomb to shut down the Straits of Hormuz. So they decided to start building in the 1980s a pipeline. It was a 2,000-mile pipeline all the way across the country that comes out in the Red Sea, and then oil can then be loaded up and then taken up to Europe and wherever else. It was a relic. People thought that it was funny. You're overreacting in the 80s. That right there is the only reason why gas prices aren't absolutely insane right now, is that pipeline. So it's interesting. It's fun with maps, but it's also kind of a cool explainer on things are bad right now. They're getting worse, but they could be a whole lot worse. So you can also kind of predict what Iranians might want to take out later in the war if they really start getting desperate. You can better believe they'll be targeting that pipeline. If you see news that pipeline has been hit, you can expect another $1 or so to go up on our gas prices. And speaking of, before I dip into your comments, I was just watching this. I don't know if you like watching or reading on Zero Hedge. I like looking at Zero Hedge. Some of the times I don't agree with what they say at all. Sometimes they highlight things that just no one else is talking about. So I like to look